Nothing is wrong, but something feels off. Your life looks fine from the outside. No chaos, no crisis, no obvious problem. And yet, there's this quiet feeling, like you're drifting without direction. You wake up, you go through your day, you do what needs to be done. But underneath it all, there's a question you can't quite answer. Why does this feel so empty? It's not sadness exactly, and it's not burnout either. It's more subtle than that. You still function, you still show up. But there's no pull, no sense of movement. You scroll more than you used to. Not because you enjoy it, but because it fills the silence. You start things, but don't feel connected to them. You finish tasks, but don't feel anything after. And over time, a quiet thought starts forming. Is this it? You look at your life objectively. You should feel okay, maybe even grateful. But instead, you feel disconnected from your work, from your routines, sometimes even from yourself. And this is where it gets confusing. Because when something is clearly wrong, you know what to fix. But when everything is fine, there's nothing to point at. So your mind turns inward. It starts questioning your identity. Maybe I've changed. Maybe I don't want this life. Maybe something is missing, but what? This is the part most people don't talk about. The quiet identity drift that happens not in chaos, but in stability. What you're feeling is not a failure. It's not a lack of discipline. It's not ingratitude. And it's not because your life is wrong. It's because your brain was never designed to feel fulfilled by stability alone. In fact, this feeling is a signal, not that something is broken, but that something is unused. A part of you that hasn't been engaged. A system in your mind that's been left without direction. You're not lost because your life is empty. You feel lost because your mind has nothing to orient toward. Psychological mechanism. Your brain runs on prediction. At a basic level, it's always asking, where am I going next? This is tied to something in neuroscience called the dopaminergic system. But dopamine isn't about pleasure the way people think. It's about anticipation, movement, direction, progress towards something. Think of your brain like a GPS, not a map, a GPS. A map can sit still. A GPS needs a destination. Without a destination, it keeps recalculating, endlessly. That's what this feeling is. Your life is stable, but your brain has no coordinates, no internal next point that feels meaningful to move toward. So instead, it loops. You start overthinking small decisions. You question things that never bothered you before, not because they matter more, but because your brain is trying to create a sense of direction out of nothing. There's also another layer. In psychology, there's a concept called self-determination theory. It says humans need 3 things to feel fulfilled: autonomy, a sense of choice; competence, a sense of growth; relatedness, a sense of connection. When your life becomes stable, these needs can quietly flatten. You're no longer choosing, you're maintaining. You're no longer growing, you're repeating. You're no longer connecting deeply, you're just interacting. And when all 3 slow down at once, your brain doesn't panic. It just drifts. And that drift feels like emptiness. But it's actually something else. It's a lack of internal direction, practical framework. So the question isn't, how do I fix my life? It's, how do I give my brain direction again? Not externally, but internally. Here's how. 1. Create artificial direction. Micro goals. What to do. Set small, self-defined targets that don't depend on outcomes. Why it works. This reactivates your brain's dopamine system. It gives your mind something to anticipate again. Example, instead of, I need to be more productive, set a target like, I'll spend 20 minutes learning something new today. Not for results, just for movement. Your brain doesn't need a life purpose immediately. It needs a next step. 2. Reintroduce novelty in controlled ways. What to do. Add small variations to your routine. Why it works. Novelty increases dopamine and attention. It signals the brain that something new is happening. Example, take a different route. Change your environment. Try a new way of doing a familiar task. Not to escape your life, but to disrupt repetition. Your brain wakes up when something slightly unexpected happens. 3. Shift. From outcome thinking to process awareness. What to do. Focus on how you experience things, not just what you achieve. Why it works. This engages the brain's present moment networks instead of future-based evaluation loops. Example, while working, notice your pace, your breathing, your level of focus. Instead of asking, is this meaningful? Ask, am I engaged right now? Meaning often follows engagement, not the other way around. 4. Reconnect with choice. Autonomy. Reset. What to do. Start making small decisions consciously. Why it works. Autonomy activates motivation circuits. It reminds your brain that you're not just maintaining, you're choosing. Example, instead of defaulting to habits, pause and ask, do I want this right now? Even small choices, what to eat, when to stop working, can restore a sense of control. 5. Introduce friction, where life is too smooth. What to do. Add slight challenges to things that have become automatic. Why it works. Challenge increases engagement and competence signals. Example, if your work feels too easy, change how you approach it. Set a higher standard. Add a constraint. Do it differently. Your brain needs just enough difficulty to feel alive. Here's the simplest way to understand all of this. You don't feel lost because your life lacks structure. You feel lost because your mind lacks direction. Structure keeps life stable. Direction makes it meaningful. Think of it like a river. If the water is completely still, it starts to feel stagnant. Not because something is wrong with the water, but because it's not flowing. Your job isn't to change the river. It's to restore the flow. Through movement, through choice, through small intentional direction. This feeling, it doesn't mean you've chosen the wrong life. It means you've been living on autopilot for just a little too long. And your mind is asking for something simple, not a dramatic change, not a new identity, just a direction, something to move toward, something to engage with. Because you don't need everything figured out to stop feeling lost. You just need a reason to take the next step. And sometimes, that's enough to feel like yourself again.